Welcome to Organic 2. This video is going to be a little different from the rest of the lectures you will see from me, so I'm not using a PowerPoint. This is usually a quick part of how I start lecturing on day one for Organic 2. We need to talk a little bit about what's expected of you from Organic 1. You can't be coming to Organic 2 not knowing any of the Organic 1 skills and reactions that you learned in the previous semester. So I want to give you some tools for reviewing to make sure that you have what you need. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do old mechanisms. Some of the mechanisms you learned, like SN1, SN2, E1, E2, you will see those steps come up again. I may reference those words, so you should know them, but I'm not going to ask you to give me one of those mechanisms. But I am going to expect you to be able to predict products. I am going to expect you to be able to provide reagents that are necessary for transformations. I am going to be able to expect you to still be able to do all of the nomenclature as we continue forward and we learn about new functional groups. We're going to add to your nomenclature rules. So you still need to know how to name an alkane, alkene, alkyne. We'll make a little list here. Alkane, alkene, alkyne. You need to know how to name alcohols. You need to know how to deal with halogens. You need to be able to deal with E and Z nomenclature as well as R and S. It won't make or break you, but once we get to Unit 2, 3, 4 in the final, that will show up on exams. So you're still expected to know how to name them. Oh, and let's throw ethers in here. People always forget that one. Thiols and sulfides are fair game, but they don't show up in Organic 2. I will provide you with some practice in a different location for nomenclature. I am going to provide a folder for Organic 1 review materials in your extra practice folder for Unit 1. And I just want to run through those really quickly here with you so you know what is expected. These items here are predicting products and providing reagents are going to be important as we do more complex synthesis, and we will do synthesis in Units 2, 3, and 4, and of course on the final. And I will focus on new material, but you need to be able to use your Organic 1 reactions to do full synthesis problems. So let's take a look at the review materials I'm providing for you. So we are going to, one that you're going to find is going to be called alkenes. It may say, I think it says alkenes updated in Klein. This is a spider diagram that I've made and I've edited over the years based on which textbook I'm teaching from. But these are all reactions that you should have learned in Organic 1. We've got, you'll notice, you've got your reagents. Let me switch away from that and we'll use the little laser pointer. You've got reagent, you've got product, but you've also got some notes. Regiochemistry, is it Markovnikov or anti-Markovnikov? Stereochemistry, if it is syn or anti-addition. If it has if it is stereoselective. X, remember, is a stand-in for halogens. So you've got Markovnikov additions of HX, anti-Markovnikov additions. You've got Markovnikov and anti-Markovnikov additions of water. Your reductions. You've got your addition of halogens, making halohydrins, and then making an epoxide. So this is a nice example to use because since it's an asymmetric ring, it's very easy to show in the product the stereochemistry and the regiochemistry. So I often like to use this as an example. You also have your 2 ways to make diols, both syn and anti, as well as ozonolysis, some oxidative cleavage. Now, in that document, I've also provided a second page where all of the products are blank. For me, that was helpful for reviewing because I could review and then I could go and I could practice. If you don't want to practice that way, that's fine, but it is there for you if you choose. Alkyne review, very similar. Just a spider diagram with all the alkyne reactions that I expect you to know. I will point out the boron for your hydroboration oxidation is often some sort of alkyl borane, like this cyamyl BH that you see here. A lot of times I'll just put BH3 and be done with it. You're looking for boron in the first step, peroxide and base in the second. Same thing with this document. I've got a second page that has blanks where the products are for practice. Okay. Another item I have for you here, this is just something I've typed up. These are things that didn't fit into those spider diagrams. What you're looking at here is SN2 reactions, right? It's a very simple reaction, but people often forget they can put a nitrile in very easily. It's one of the first things you learned. Or you can make an alcohol or an ester. This is really helpful as we start to dive into more of these functional groups. You also don't want to forget your elimination reactions. You can eliminate and get a Zaitsev product or a Hoffman product, depending on which base you use. You can also eliminate an alcohol using concentrated H2SO4. That will give you Zaitsev. If you, for instance, had an alcohol and needed Hoffman, then you need to change this first. Lots of different options. You can make it a tosylate. You could replace it with bromine using something like PBr3. But the alcohol itself, if you're just going to dehydrate with acid, it's going to give you that Zaitsev product. The Grignard, this is a very important reaction because it helps us to extend the carbon chain. Using the triple bond and putting R groups on the end is great, but if you need to make branch chains, the Grignard is often your only choice. And it's often just faster to get to an alcohol or a carbonyl than it is to get to a triple bond. So I find the Grignard reaction to be most helpful in organic 2 synthesis for extending carbon chains. So you want to note that it adds once to aldehydes and ketones. It adds twice to esters. I've got a whole Grignard practice for you as well, but that's just like, hello, don't forget about me. I learned about Grignards. On the second page of that document, this, and it won't be cut off when you look at it. It just imported funny on my computer. This, yeah, I can't see it here. This is just a Klein spider diagram. So Klein loves to summarize things. If you're not someone who plans on reading the whole chapter, I do really encourage you to go to the summary sections of the slides of the textbook. Klein does a really good job summarizing reactions that you've learned. I think this one came at the end of chapter 12. And so you see alcohols, you see carbonyls, you see everything to alkanes. It get very, very helpful when reviewing or doing synthesis. I've given you a couple of practices. Now, extra practice will not be done for a grade. You won't turn it in. There will be solutions provided. And so I'm providing a little bit of Organic 1 review here. Bunch of practice where you predict the reagents, you predict the products, even a few where you go backwards. There will also be a solutions key up next to this file. Same with Grignard practice. Lots of Grignard practice here. There will be another file with solutions. If it's been a while since you've taken Organic 1, I highly recommend you doing this practice. Exam 1 will cover chapter 14 and 15, spectroscopy, but there will be a section, there will be questions on Organic 1 review. So I will ask you to kind of like with, like this, I will ask you to predict the product, predict the reagents, or even predict the starting material. So it's important that you comb through and review these. Now, I will point out, since I am looking at it, depending on who you took Organic 1 with, some of these may not look familiar to you. That's okay. For anything that's not on that spider diagram, like Gilman here, this isn't covered in Organic 1 Incline. So, for instance, this one, you don't need to worry about. We are going to talk about Gilman in Organic 2. But hydrogen and a catalyst, ozonolysis, hydroboration oxidation, right? You see that little copper lithium again. We're not going to deal with that one. HX, acid and heat, SOCl2. These should all look familiar to you. Adding water in both of these, right? For the most part, these are all fine. I just wanted to warn you about the copper lithium ones. If you took Organic 1 somewhere else, maybe you already know how to do it. Then great. Okay. I will also provide some old practice exams, but I do want to warn you, your test this summer will be multiple choice. Old exams of mine are not multiple choice. This is my first semester fully online, so my materials aren't going to be perfect, but I will give you more practice than you could ever want. And if you run out, let me know. I have more, and I will be happy to provide it for you. All right, thank you. I will see you in chapter 14.